Hello and welcome. I have books piled around me because today I'm going to do my February revisit haul. And every month in 2024, I'm going to be going through and we're talking about all the books that I previously bought and did I read them? What are my thoughts now? I tend to be a little bit sloppy when it comes to wrap-ups and book hauls in general. So so many of the books that I have around me I have never spoken about. I'm going to start in 2023 and I'm going to go backwards until 2018. So my haul in 2023 was not only one of my smallest in volumes, it was also one of my smallest in size. These are both petite books. I bought these at a secondhand store, which most of my books are bought at thrift stores, so these were like $4 or something. But the first one that I bought was Bliss and Other Stories. This is by Katherine Mansfield. This turned 100 years old last year. I did not read it. She is well known for being author of The Garden Party, and this was one of her last books before she passed away of tuberculosis. And yeah, I've been really interested in reading more of her stories, of reading Bliss, and I've started this book briefly on Audrey, the app that is so beautiful and has wonderful audiobooks and commentaries and illustrations, and I'm so excited to finish this. It was supposed to be read in February, and it just didn't happen. Winesburg, Ohio. And this is by Sherwood Anderson, and I had not heard of this book previously at all to picking it up, but it seemed just so fascinating. The back of it says, Winesburg, Ohio in 1919 is Sherwood Anderson's masterpiece, a cycle of short stories set in a small Ohio town at the end of the 19th century. At the center is George Willard, a young reporter who is the confidant of the town's grotesques, solitary figures for whom he is the conduit of expression and solace from loneliness. I think that's excellent. I love short stories. I love this era of like 1919, like early 20th century. I find it so fascinating. And then 2022 is brilliant because I did not pick up or receive or buy any books in February of that year at all. So we're going to jump all the way to 2021, in which I have these books, which are much more thicker in regards to things. So first of all, we have a book that I previously read. This is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I've talked a lot about how John Green is one of my favorite authors as a person, and this is a book that's delving into OCD and the way that it interacts with us and mental health. I read it when it was a new release and I really liked it. I hope to reread it. The movie is coming out this spring, and yeah, I just really enjoy the way that John Green writes and how he deals with complex issues. I find that the friendships and relationships in here is really well handled. The next book is a darling of fantasy booktube, and this is Rage Dragons. It is bigger than the size of my face, and I was so overjoyed. I found this in a free little library and I freaked out because I was like, this is a cool book and I like never expected to get it and all of these things. I have read probably about that amount. I have read a fair amount. I could not get into it. It is very action focused, which I love my characters, and I always tell myself I'm going to go back to it and I haven't. Evan Winter is a Canadian author, and I hope to read it one day. One of my weakest points in writing fantasy is military and fight, so I thought this would be a cool book to read from that perspective as well. I feel like this was also probably a free little library book, and this is The Romance of Arthur, an anthology of medieval texts in translation. I actually just started reading this in the last few months, and I found it really fascinating. I just like sat there for hours, and I was just like reading and transfixed, and then I started writing notes, and it was really cool. And yeah, Arthur is one of those characters that we know lots about in pop culture, but like so many of the myths and stories are retold and all of those things. And yeah, I like classics a lot and I like looking at those roots, and I feel like some medieval texts have always felt very daunting, but I've been very interested. So I researched them a lot. So after several years of it being on my shelf, I actually started looking at it. And yeah, I hope to, I probably won't read this cover to cover, but I hope to read more of it in the future. I think that because February is so cold, I often don't buy very many books in February because these books were all given to me, and these are Miss Marvel's comics. And this was a friend of mine who let me borrow their books, and I started reading them, and then when I returned them, they let me keep these ones because they had water damage and they had bought them again. And yes, I have read the first Miss Marvel book, and then I went to continue on and I read the second issue from another series, which was actually like 10th in this. And then I think that this is number 1, and then I read the second one after this one, but these ones go up to 10. So I'm missing like 2 to 7, and then these are 8, 9, 10, and then one of the new series. And yeah, this is the first Pakistani superhero. I really enjoy her stories. She had a Disney Plus series last year or 2 years ago, and I liked it. I wasn't as big a fan of it, but she is definitely a heroine that I appreciate and I want to get back to it. In 2019, I bought or received these books plus some classics that I will show you around. I, as you can tell, stack my books, which sometimes makes it very difficult to pull some of these books out. But I will start at the bottom, which is 50 Great Short Stories. I have read a fair amount of them. Some of them, like The Garden Party, I had already read, but me and my roommate would walk around and have picnics during the pandemic and would read these, and we would just like be out in the wilderness and eat food, and it was great. The ones that I've read on here, I think, okay, this includes Hemingway, Shaw, Poe, O'Hara, Faulkner, do not know who Thurber is, O. Henry, Joyce, Chekhov, Salinger, Woolf, Kipling, Sarian, Conrad, McCullers, Stevenson, James, Wharton, Maugham, Larder, Huxley, Wells, Stenbach, and 27 other great writers. So I've read some of these. And then during that time, we did a Christmas exchange for BookTube, and I got 2 manga, which was super exciting. I got Death Note and Fullmetal Alchemist. And I have definitely read parts of both of these. The big issue with Death Note, which is probably one of my most embarrassing stories. It was the summer of 2019. I was in a reading rush, and I wanted to read this. And I think this version is so pretty. And I know that you read manga backwards. So I looked at this, turned it around, and started reading it like this, which is frontwards to us. And I didn't read it frontwards because I thought that that's how you read it. I read it because I knew you had to read it backwards. So I looked at the cover and then turned it around. And I read probably more than 150 pages, utterly confused, trying to figure out what the heck was this like jump start. And that has made it hard for me to go back to this book. I don't even know how long this book is. I think it's only like 400 or 500 pages, and I read 150 of it backwards. And for that reason, Fullmetal Alchemist, which I plan to read after, has been on this delay. Just because I'm like, no, I can't do it. I have been embarrassed, I have been shocked. And you know when you're frustrated at a story that you don't want to go back? Not for its own pain at all, just for myself. The 3 classics that I want to talk about are all at the bottom shelves. The first one is Pickwick Papers. You can see it right here, right at the bottom. This is a Charles Dickens book, so this is his first book. I will probably read it eventually, but it's definitely not on the top of my Dickens TBR. And then up here, I have both The 5 Little Pigs by Agatha Christie, and this is one of her mysteries. I don't know that much about it. I know that I found it, and I was delighted. I love those covers so much. I think that they're so pretty. And then I also have another Dickens, which is Our Mutual Friend, which I definitely want to read at some point again. It's definitely not on the top tier of my Dickens books, but it is up there kind of in the middle-ish of my books. And that is my beautiful orange shelf that I'm very proud of, but I always end up dropping things too many times when I pick it up. I will talk about some more books that I have read, and this is 2018. So yeah, I love February 2018. I love that I started with these 2 books, which I did pull out of this big stack here. It's Agnes Grey and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. And yes, I have a Bronte love, and I have now read 3 Bronte books, and I have read 2 by Charlotte Bronte, and these are my Anne Bronte books. So I definitely want to read these, and I think that she's going to be my favorite. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall just seems like a book that I will really love, and it is a little bit more bruised because I have carried around in my bags. I have put it probably on more TBRs than any other book, and I feel so intimidated. It deals with a woman who's run away, and no one knows her history, no one knows her past, but it unravels, and it talks a lot about women's place in the 19th century, and it just sounds so wonderful. Agnes Grey looks at a governess, and I'm really excited for this book as well. 100 Years in Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This book was painful. It took me like 8 months to read because I just felt so triggered and so gross when reading this. I love the book club Past It Classics, and they have a live show going through many of the horrendous things, and I was watching them and I was just like, yes, this is the feelings that I've had for so long, and they are expressing all of it. It's just like incest upon incest upon incest and sexual assault. It's just horrendous, and the writing is not bad, but like it definitely doesn't make up for it. And then one more book that I'm not going to pull out is The 3 Musketeers. It is way in the corner here, and that is a lot of books to uncover to bring it out. But The 3 Musketeers, I have a soft spot for. Does anyone know the beautiful, wonderful, like BBC series from 2014 to 2016 that's 3 seasons of just brilliantness? That is just like such a wonderful show for me. So even though it is not a perfect masterpiece, I think that that primed me to love it so much, and I did love it so much. I had so much fun. I read it listening to it on audiobook driving home from my parents in the middle of wintertime after Christmas time, and I was just smiling and having fun, and it was a great time. And then the first of these classics that I actually read, I think way back in 2018, is Maya Angelou and I Know Why the Caged Bird Sing. This is a book that just packs a punch. Many people probably know her story, but like, this is a book that I think about and lives with inside me like every day. Like, it's a memoir about her experience of growing up. It deals with sexual assault and selective mutism and learning to read and all of these aspects that are just really powerful. And even just like her driving to Mexico, like, there's scenes in this book that like just live in my mind and like have never departed from my mind. Maya Angelou, what a queen. And then last and maybe least, I don't know, this is Reading Lolita in Tehran. And this is a memoir in books, which sounds really fascinating. Let me pull the books that they read. They read Lolita, Gatsby, James, and Austen. I'm guessing that's Henry James. Interesting. I didn't know. At the time, I didn't think I knew really who Henry James was. And that's really cool because I love Austen a lot more than I did in 2018. And I love James so much and didn't know who he is. And Gatsby is one of my favorite books. Lolita, I don't know if I ever want to read that book, which is probably why I have not read this book. And yeah, maybe I will read parts of it. And yeah, it is a nonfiction book that I love books about books, and I got it, and I'm not sure if it's ever going to be read, but it is on my shelf. So if we go to our tallies, I brought in 21 books over 6 years, and yeah, I have read 4 of them. One of them I previously read with Turtles All the Way Down, and 3 I read during my time. All of those belonged to my 2018 books. I think that I definitely feel like I have started reading or have explored many of the other books, or some of them, like Arthurian Legends, reading Lolita and Tehran, or 50 Great Stories, aren't meant to necessarily be read in one foul swoop, and some I just got blocked along the way. But yes, I am excited to read many of these books again, and it's really nice to bring them out and think about the books and think about the months I bought them. I think that the book that I'm most excited for is Reading Bliss. I think that it's going to be really wonderful. So that is my book haul revisit for February of the many years of past, and I would love to hear which books you buy in February, which books of these you have read, do you have thoughts about them, do you think that I should get rid of some of them? Will I ever finish the books that I've started? Have you ever read manga the wrong way? I would love to hear your thoughts, and I will see you next time.